The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is brought to you by Clinica Sierra Vista.
Welcome back to the 17 News at Sunrise podcast, where we share your news on your schedule.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
And good morning here at 5 a.m. Good to have you with us. I'm Maddie Jansen alongside Tom Wallace, and for Alex Fisher this morning. A long night. A lot of you may be waking up a little tired after all the fireworks last night.
Oh, yes. And you and the boys in Tehachapi saw good fireworks.
Oh, yeah. Great show. Great shows across the Golden Empire. I just know, there were some issues, of course, with the illegal ones, like always. Unfortunately, we just can't get away from it.
No, we cannot. Well, taking a look at the how weather is looking on this July 5th and perhaps our air quality too. Here's Kevin Charette.
Yeah, we're all dragging a little bit this morning. There definitely was a lot of illegal fireworks last night, and the air quality suffered with that a little bit, but hopefully we'll see improvements in that today. In terms of our temperatures, a little cooler today. Let's take you outside right now, show you the skies of Bakersfield. We've got 74 degrees currently, under a calm wind right now for Bakersfield. As we take a look at the hour-by-hour forecast, we are going to be back into those 80s by 9 a.m. and near 100 as we progress into the afternoon. For the Tehachapi area, we've got the sun slowly coming up, 52 degrees, a calm wind for you right now, and hour by hour, mid-60s to start, and then we'll be looking at the upper 80s throughout the afternoon. Much in your forecast in just a little bit. For now, we'll send it back over to you.
All right, thanks so much, Kev. 5:02 is your time now, and we begin this morning with 4th of July celebrations as countless fireworks lit up the night sky throughout Bakersfield. Here's a look at those fireworks captured on our Adventist Health camera in downtown Bakersfield just after nightfall. The loud booms could be heard throughout the night into early morning, with reports of illegal fireworks coming in far past midnight. And up in Tehachapi, residents also got in on the fun with a fireworks show just after 9 p.m. The bright flashes were a welcome sight for many after nearly a year and a half of lockdowns amid the COVID-19 pandemic. This year's 4th of July was a hot one as residents rejoiced for that first major holiday since the reopening of the state. More than 3 million people across California traveled for the holiday. The park at Riverwalk resumed its 4th of July fireworks show after taking a break last year because of the pandemic. And 17's Marco Torres has the story.
Some arrived as early as 3 p.m. Experts predicted about 5,000 people would show up. That's 3 times less than the 2019 numbers.
Just told me that right here that there's a beautiful river here and that they're gonna throw fireworks, and yeah, here I come and I enjoy it. Like, it's peaceful. You can see all the ducks right here, the little kids. I like it.
We got here about 5 o'clock. We brought a lot of water. I brought a fan that has water. And we just want her to see it since it's her first time, so we're just wanted to bring her out. We're excited to get out of the house post-COVID.
Jordan Brown is the pyrotechnic operator for the Riverwalk show. He says the #1 difference between a homebrewed illegal fireworks show and theirs is safety.
This is done in a professional manner. It's a lot safer. We're all trained. I mean, I've been doing this. This is my 27th year doing fireworks, and everyone's safe. I go home with all 10 fingers and all 10 toes for sure every time.
Brown also says people shouldn't waste their money on illegal fireworks, suggesting you could enjoy a free show with your family.
Keep your illegals at home. Don't do them. Your friends, family will all appreciate it when your house isn't burnt down for doing something that you weren't supposed to be doing in the first place.
Some of the fireworks you saw on the Riverwalk show were between 300 to 500 feet long, reaching anywhere between 300 to 500 feet in the air. From the park at the Riverwalk, Marco Torres, 17 News.
Well, while it was a night full of fun with family and friends, it was a different story for local firefighters who responded to dozens of fires throughout the county, including this one. Witnesses say this fire broke out just after 10:30 last night at a home on Jewett Avenue in northeast Bakersfield. The video sent to 17 News shows a chaotic scene as firefighters worked to put out the blaze with what appears to be a pony. You see it there running loose at the scene. Witnesses tell us the house and trailer were fully engulfed in flames. No word yet on what caused this fire. And a reminder, as you head out today, all city offices will be closed in observance of Independence Day. City offices will reopen tomorrow at 8 a.m. Switching gears now to headlines around the nation. Crews in Surfside, Florida have demolished the remaining section that was still standing of the Surfside Condominium building ahead of Tropical Storm Elsa. But rescuers say the search for remains will continue. Only 24 bodies have been recovered and over 120 people still are unaccounted for. NBC's Jennifer Johnson has the latest.
The last part of the Surfside condominium building has been demolished. That section came down ahead of possible high winds from Tropical Storm Elsa. But officials say this will create a bigger debris pile, increasing their chances of finding more remains.
Bringing down this building in a controlled manner is critical to expanding our scope of the search and rescue effort and allowing us to explore the area closest to the building, which has currently not been accessible to our first responders.
Rescuers promise the mission to find the missing will intensify as crews try and stabilize the rubble ahead of the storm.
We are, of course, continuing to monitor Tropical Storm Elsa. Will cross Cuba and end up approaching Florida, likely sometime Monday afternoon or evening.
On this day when millions of Americans are celebrating, there's more work and heartache here.
This is not an Independence Day like any we have ever experienced before.
After over 10 days of searching, there is still no closure for so many families.
The video is all I see when I close my eyes, because to me that's the moment I'm watching my mom and my grandmother die.
And now at least 6 rescuers have tested positive for COVID-19, complicating a difficult mission even more. Jennifer Johnson, NBC News, Washington.
And now to a wildfire burning near the I-5 in Gorman. First responders say the tumbleweed fire was first reported near Gorman Post Road in southbound I-5 around 2:30 yesterday afternoon. It has burned 1,000 acres so far, quickly growing in size because of gusty winds. As of the last update, it was 10% contained. No structures are threatened, but 2 firefighters suffered minor injuries. The Hungry Valley State Vehicular Recreation Area, an off-road driving and hiking park, had to be evacuated. And now to one of our signature issues, pedestrian safety. Police say a man was hit and killed early this morning in central Bakersfield. Details are still limited at this time, but police say a man was hit by a car while walking in the road just before 1 a.m. on 4th Street near Lowell Park. According to BPD, the driver pulled over to check on the victim's condition, and that's when another driver ran into both the pedestrian and the driver who'd pulled over. Police say the driver sustained minor injuries, but the pedestrian died. Officers say it does not appear drugs or alcohol were involved. Meantime, California Highway Patrol says a woman may have been under the influence of alcohol when she was hit and killed by a vehicle in Oildale early Saturday morning. Officers were called to the area of Airport Drive and Castaic Avenue near Meadowsfield Airport just after 2:30 a.m. CHP says a 33-year-old woman walked directly into the path of a passing Volkswagen.
In your 17 Crime Watch, Bakersfield police say 1 person is dead and another is wounded after a shooting in East Bakersfield. Officers were called to Plute Pass Street and Dorado Pass Avenue at about 4:45 yesterday afternoon. Police say a man shot at his stepdaughter over a family argument before turning the gun on himself. First responders say the bullet grazed her, leaving her with moderate wounds. The man was hospitalized after reportedly shooting himself in the head. He was later pronounced dead. Neither the shooter nor the victim's identities have been released. And police have arrested a local woman in connection with the crash that killed a 13-year-old boy in January. Records show Christina Moreno Gonzalez was booked into the downtown jail Friday morning. She's been charged with vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. Police say Nicholas Peterson and his stepfather were riding a motorcycle that collided with an SUV at the corner of Coffee and Hageman Roads back on January 10th. The stepfather, John Deal, suffered serious injuries. Meantime, Moreno Gonzalez is due in court on Wednesday.
Your time now is 5:09. Calling all local artists, you have a chance to show off your design skills. CASA of Kern County is making t-shirts for this year's Spooktacular Superhero Run, and they're holding a contest to choose the best design. They're looking for t-shirt designs that are child-friendly and superhero themed. The deadline is the end of this month, July 31st. The contest winner's name will appear on the CASA website after they're chosen. We have more information about the contest on our website, kget.com.
Clinica Sierra Vista is now offering rapid COVID-19 testing and COVID-19 vaccinations. Call 833-278-4584 to make your appointment. But don't delay. Clinica Sierra Vista, putting patients first.
Around the world, here in Italy this morning, Pope Francis is recovering in the hospital for a surgery the Vatican says was scheduled. NBC's Molly Hunter has the latest.
84-year-old Pope Francis is recovering after what the Vatican says was a scheduled surgery. In a statement, the Holy See press office says Francis reacted well on Sunday after going under general anesthesia for intestinal surgery. The Holy See adds he was diagnosed with symptomatic diverticular stenosis of the colon, or narrowing of the colon.
It is a major surgery, and it's going to take him longer to recover.
But the surgery marks a rare health issue for the pontiff, who is robust, generally healthy, often holding meetings 6 days a week.
E sono lieto di annunciare.
Hours earlier, the Pope held his usual Sunday blessing, announcing a foreign trip in September, not mentioning the surgery. But last Sunday, he asked for support, saying, "Pray in a special way. The Pope needs your prayers." This is Pope Francis's first known hospital visit since taking office in 2013. We know he suffers from sciatica and decades ago as a young man had part of one lung removed. Italian President Sergio Mattarella wishing the Pope a speedy recovery, saying all Italians are with your holiness in these hours. Molly Hunter, NBC News.
The United States is withdrawing the last of its troops from Afghanistan after nearly 20 years of war. But as that happens, the Taliban, a radical Islamic faction, is moving in to take over military posts from Afghan troops. The Taliban has taken around 150 Afghan military posts in the last 2 months, including a dozen this weekend. The Taliban's taking weapons from Afghan forces, keeping some and selling others to Pakistan, according to Afghan officials. But one unit that has not been collapsing is the Afghan commandos, trained by American Special Forces. They're launching around 100 operations a day, shouldering about 90% of the fight.
If Americans will keep supporting us financially and the way we want our armed troops for the future and our Afghan Air Force, of course we can fight.
According to multiple Afghan officials, foreign Islamic radicals are rushing back to Afghanistan so they can witness what they're calling the final victory, the withdrawal of U.S. troops, pushed out, they say, by the Taliban. Hard to believe it has been 2 years since a pair of powerful earthquakes and many more aftershocks struck the Ridgecrest and Trona region. The Templars left a lot of damage.
And as we mark this anniversary 730 days later, I trekked out to the desert communities to see how they're doing. The popcorn is popping, employees are working, and movies are playing at Ridgecrest cinemas. These sights, sounds, and trust me, smells are welcome news here. But just 2 years ago, this theater was in the news for a different reason. This whole region was.
Get down, Mike, get down.
On July 4th and 5th, 2019, Ridgecrest and surrounding communities were rocked by a series of powerful earthquakes, including a magnitude 6.4, and the next day, a 7.1.
Let's go! Let's go! Let's go!
Felt as far away as LA, Vegas, Phoenix, and Sacramento, they were the strongest quakes to strike California in 20 years. Remarkably, no one died in Ridgecrest and there were no major injuries, but one death was reported in Nevada. Each quake caused widespread damage in Ridgecrest, population about 30,000 on the far eastern edge of Kern County. The Ridgecrest cinemas were especially hit hard. The roof inside Theater Number 1 completely caved in, forcing the establishment to shut down for 3 weeks.
This is Theater 1.
Ridgecrest Cinema's general manager, Kelly Walden, showed us what the room looks like 2 years later.
This wall just moved so much that it caused this side to fall down.
Today, the room has no lights and sits empty. The wall where a screen once displayed movies, now covered in wood. A double whammy, the theater had to shut down for 15 months during the pandemic.
April 9th, I believe, was our first day back, and it's an uphill battle every day.
The good news, nearly all the 8 theaters at Ridgecrest Cinemas are back open. And as for Theater Number 1,
the future is we're going to have another theater in here one day.
While she rebuilds, some parts of the city have not. You may remember this mobile home on West Ward Avenue was knocked off of its foundation. 2 years later, it remains red tagged and still off of its foundation. The state is working to remove it. But there are other parts that have rebuilt. Some are small things, like this cinder block wall across from the mobile home on West Ward Avenue. In 2019, this is all that was left of some of the wall.
These cinder blocks, I'm told, all came off.
But now, the wall is back. And then there are some bigger things. $4 billion, for example, of government aid for repairs at nearby Naval Air Weapons Station China Lake. The base suffered billions in damage during the earthquakes, forcing thousands of people to relocate to these temporary units on the outskirts of Ridgecrest. But brick and mortar is not the only thing that's been repaired. One thing without a price tag: morale.
We are a great community, and you know what? Ridgecrest rocks! Thank you.
Peggy Breeden was mayor when the earthquake struck. Her reflections 2 years after this now famous emergency town hall speech.
Ridgecrest still rocks. I can remember saying, Ridgecrest rocks. And when I said it, I saw the people's eyes light up, and we saw that it was us. It was us working to find solutions for our community. And we did.
Solutions that are both measurable and immeasurable.
I remember a lot of it clearly.
One solution, according to Police Chief Jed McLaughlin, the quakes reminded people to expect the unexpected.
Should we have another one? Hope not. We'll be even that much more prepared.
Current Mayor Eric Bruin elaborated on more measurable solutions and successes the city has seen in the wake of the earthquakes.
We'll have 4 new eateries within 6 months. We'll have a new hotel within 6 months. This is all being driven by the incredible opportunities of regrowth that's coming from the quake. And nobody wants to apply that an earthquake's a good thing, because obviously it can be a tragic loss of life and damage, but in our case, it was a huge opportunity for our community to come out of it with a strong future.
But here in Trona, it's a different story. Just take this former Shell gas station, for example. Much of the ground was damaged in the earthquake. The owner boarded up these gas pumps and the food mart and closed down the entire station. And that's not all for this Searles Valley, San Bernardino County town about 25 miles east of Ridgecrest. Trona's only large grocery store, Family Dollar, also boarded up and closed after the earthquake. A large for lease sign is printed above the store's entrance. Throughout this town of just under 2,000 people, large cracks in the sidewalks are still visible. Then there is Trona High School, the home of the tornadoes. The school had so much damage during the earthquakes that it was deemed unsafe for its students, who now have to take classes at the elementary school. Do you feel Trona has been forgotten?
Well, Trona being a small town, we're used to it. But we take care of ourselves.
Kathy Hessman has lived in Trona since 1965. She is the vice president of the Searles Valley Historical Society and serves on the Trona Joint Unified School District Board of Trustees.
It would cost $55 million to fix the high school to meet the current codes. We can't do that. We will never get the high school back. I know we're a small school district, but those kids still needed their school. So what we're looking at now is having to rebuild.
Has the federal government done enough to help Trona?
No. It's an unqualified no to that.
Congressman Jay Obernolte represents Trona. Elected to Congress after the earthquakes, Obernolte previously served in the state legislature. He says the main problem is with the Federal Emergency Management Agency, also known as FEMA. Specifically, he says FEMA's formula that ultimately determines who gets federal aid and how much actually makes it extremely difficult for rural communities like Trona to receive any aid after a major disaster.
The criterion by which FEMA decides which disasters are eligible for their aid is outdated because it factors in the population of the state compared to the cost of the disaster. If you have a large state like California with many residents, we've got about 40 million, and a small community like Trona, that means that you could knock the entire community flat and probably not have enough economic damage to qualify for FEMA assistance. That is just patently ridiculous.
He hopes to introduce legislation to change that, but in the meantime, he sent this letter to Governor Gavin Newsom, urging Newsom to make sure some of the pandemic relief funding sent to California from the feds makes it to Trona.
They desperately need this relief funding, and what I'm pointing out to the governor is that the federal government just wrote the state of California essentially a $42 billion check. Right, billion with a B. That's a result of the stimulus legislation that was passed earlier this year in Congress. So surely some of that $42 billion can be spared to help a small community like Trona make sure that their school district continues to be solvent.
It's been rough, but we've had a lot of positive things happening too.
Those positives, she says, include the rebuilding of some parts of town. Improvements also have been made to the old guest house museum, and it now seems San Bernardino County has started to take care of dilapidated houses that were abandoned years before the earthquake even happened. But most significant, says Hessman, through it all, the people of Trona have kept positive.
The earthquake is a thing of the past, and finally, hopefully, COVID is a thing of the past. And so people are starting to get a much more positive outlook now. We still remind each other that we can get things done and take care of each other and take care of ourselves. Absolutely Trona strong.
Now, we should point out, right after the earthquakes, Trona did receive aid from local sources, including the state's Small Business Administration. Obernolte tells me as of now, he has not heard back from the governor about how much more aid, if any, Newsom will allocate for Trona. And Robert Price will have an in-depth report this evening about how the pandemic has impacted Ridgecrest. So look out for that on a 17 News special edition.
Yeah, those communities got one disaster right after another with the pandemic hitting, you know, while they were still trying to recover.
Terrible.
Are they still feeling aftershocks in that area?
Indeed they are. You know, it's very interesting. Even the day I was recording those interviews, you just saw in that report, got a 3.2 magnitude in the Searles Valley in Trona there. So they're dealing with it. In fact, they've had more than 1,000 aftershocks.
Wow.
I think it's closer like to 1,400 since that day 2 years ago. So a lot there. And that brings up really another important point, which is, first of all, while there were no deaths and injuries, it's important to remember we can still have emotional and psychological trauma from that. Of course, post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and anyone who may need counseling or support can always call or text the Red Cross 24/7 Disaster Distress Helpline. You see it here. That's 1-800-985-5990.
Oh, I'm sure they're dealing with a lot of stress. You know, you're always on edge when you feel one of those hit again. So,
indeed, up more than 1,000.
All right, thanks so much.
Working in the spirit of the Golden Empire, this is 17 News at Sunrise.
The 17 News at Sunrise podcast is a production of KGET and Nexstar Media Group. For more on all of the headlines in today's show, head to kget.com.